Well, hey there, Car Guy Nation. I'm here with Rob Miller, and we're in Louisville, Texas, where he's embarking on the long trip down with the race car to the La Carrera in Mexico for the La Carrera Panamericana,
Right.
which is starting October 17th, 16th is the
race
16th?
starts on October the 16th at Tuxtla Gutierrez, which is about 100 miles from the Guatemala border. And we race from there up to Durango in 7 days, 2,000 miles.
I understand it's over 300 or 3,000 kilometers in a race on Mexican highways, dirt roads, asphalt roads, on roads that you've never been on before, that you'll be driving at speed with other pedestrian traffic also involved. Is that correct?
Well, what we understand is there are speed sections and there are transit sections. And the speed sections, what we understand is that the Mexican National Police shut down the highways. And we have 7 to 9 speed sections a day. And in between those, of course, we drive normal speed limits. What we hope and what is supposed to happen is during the speed sections, there shouldn't be any other pedestrians or anybody close to the road, but if you look at the YouTube videos, sometimes there are.
There's that's part of the race, the hazards that might come across there. And it really is just a wonderful race. Historically, from over 60 years now, that this race in the 50s had launched, and then they suspended it for a while because of the safety, and they had the Mercedes that crashed at Le Mans in 1955, but then they've restarted it up again.
Right.
And they're getting racers from across the country and around the world that come to this race. How did you decide to put this project together? Because this has been a couple years in the making, from what I understand.
It's been about 18 months. We started in May of last year, and a friend of mine called and said, let's race the Panamericana. His name is Wilbert Grinspan. He's run Paris to Dakar a couple of times. We got started talking about it, and next thing you know, we're building a car with the Shelby program out at North Texas Community College. And, you know, it seems like a month ago we started, and now we're leaving for the race.
Well, it's really interesting how this all came together, that you decided with other gentlemen about running in this race to begin with,
Right.
and then to find the car, and then to pull in the Shelby School. I mean, I guess it's those background relationships that lent itself to putting this all together.
It's like any other project. It's about the team that you have around you. It's about the resources that come together for the right project. I met Brad Johnson, the president of the college. We were talking. He said, you need to come see the Shelby program. I did. It's really impressive. Shelby really started them off with before he passed, he started them off on a really, really good path, funded them, gave scholarships, and it's a really nice program. Then a few months later, Wilbert calls me and says, let's run this race. And, 24 hours later, I was thinking about it and talking to Brad, and Brad said, absolutely, let's do this together. And 120 kids in that program have worked on this car. And it's been, we're not even to the race, and it's already been a great experience.
Well, what a great experience for those kids to be involved in something like this. The pride that comes along with that, the experience that they have, and that they can then take with them in their careers. What a great thing to do with a school. What are you going to do next year for the school?
Well, it's always about the next project. Somebody asked Carroll Shelby, what's your favorite car? And he's like, the one I'm building tomorrow. And I think it has been rewarding for the kids. They tell us it is, and we see a lot of smiles on their faces. But the thing about a Shelby program is Shelby was about performance. And so that's the thing that sets this program apart. They learn all the stuff you learn in any other automotive technology program, but they wanted a performance link. We've talked about 2 or 3 things. We might build a land speed car. We're also talking about maybe building an off-road car. So this car will race this race, and if we don't tear it up, and some cars get torn up in this race, if we don't tear it up in this race, we're probably going to run it at Pikes Peak, which will be the 100th running of that race, and so we're excited about that. And Panamericana cars do that in the vintage classes at Pikes Peak. And then after we do that, then we'll kind of regroup, and if it's time to build a land speed racer, we'll do that.
All right, I'm here with Tony from the Shelby School, and he is an instructor there. And tell me about the inspiration that occurred 50 years ago.
It started at Green Valley in 1965. My dad took me to the races. I really didn't want to go that day, but he convinced me to go. And that day I was kind of basically exposed to racing. It was something that became a passion from that moment. To see Ken Miles jumping with the Mustang, all the people there, it was a wonderful thing.
Aren't you glad you went now?
Yeah, I sure am.
Great. Well, you worked for one of the greatest legends in racing, A.J. Foyt.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about that time in IndyCar.
It was a wonderful experience. The opportunity was the most important thing. Bill Spencer, a good friend of mine, asked me to come on board. Craig Barnowski, all the guys on the team supported me. The wonderful part of it was my first Indy. We actually won the Indy 500, so I was a crew
Fantastic.
member that was involved in that.
Wow. Kudos to you, sir.
No, it's
Now, how did you get involved with Carroll Shelby?
back in the mid-'80s, I restored cars, and people were looking at some of the cars I was restoring, and I had an opportunity to work on some of his cars. They just came in the shop. Our model, I think 001, Rick Nagill owned the car. Some of the other cars, Daytona Coupe, GT40s, Group 2 cars. At one time, I just was in love with the cars, but then I kind of got burnt out working on the cars.
Understandable. I heard you were able to bring up some cars from Mexico, too.
Yeah, Mark Gillette helped me find some cars. I've got a Rafael Villazon 67 Mustang and a few other Mustangs. They were cheap, so like me, I wanted a cheap car, so that's where I went.
Not too bad then.
No.
So, what's your involvement with this race car?
This car here is a project that Rob Miller over a year ago asked us to be a part of. We selected a group of students to build this car. This car basically is going to be run in the Pan America series in this fall, or in October. The car is a total rebuild. It's kind of a restoration. We're trying to mix being period correct, but also technology.
Right.
And the students have just done a phenomenal job. It's the passion that I felt. I'm hoping they can feel. Being out here, I see some of the exposure of that. It's almost like looking in a mirror and you can see yourself in a student and being exposed to what you did.
That's great. Well, they're doing an awesome job. You're doing an awesome job. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's talk briefly about the vehicles here. You brought back to life two vehicles, the Chevy truck here and the Mustang itself. Tell us a little bit of that background, how you found these two vehicles, and then did the schoolwork on the truck as well, and so forth.
Sure. The car is an $800 Craigslist car. We bought it out around Sherman, Texas, and it had 4 different kinds of wheels on it. The body was solid. It needed a front fender, but it had good floor pans in it and stuff. And Tony Whitworth, who's the instructor that sort of shepherded this project, actually restored some of Carroll Shelby's cars. So he knew what to do to make it an appropriate Shelby. He also worked for A.J. Foyt building Indy cars for 10 years. So I felt comfortable that with him supervising these kids, they could build a race car. The Shelby guys, we've had a lot of Shelby guys look at this car, and they, including Peter Brock, and the thing that they tell us is this car is very period correct. Obviously, we upgraded some things like the roll cage because they had one roll bar in '66. But if you look at the valve covers and the way that the suspension is handled and even the colors on the car, they're all exactly the way they're supposed to be. And Tony made that happen, and I think Carroll Shelby would be proud of that.
Well, tell us about the truck.
Well, the truck, I have a car hauler trailer and a pickup, but in the 60s and the early 70s, people hauled their cars to the racetrack on a ramp truck. So we got to thinking about that, and one of the things I told Dr. Johnson was, we'll use this car to promote the program. Now we have 20,000 Facebook followers. People are learning about this program, which has kind of been a little bit of a secret. And I thought if we built this ramp truck, people would see us going down the road, and it's going to advertise the program. I mean, I don't think you can get a better rolling billboard than this. So again, we bought this 1984 dually off of Craigslist, $2,500. My friend Mitch Gray and a Shelby student named Colton Tenery, who graduated a couple years ago, built this truck. And it was in about 120 days. And so, you know, we're still sorting some things as we go, but it's a great way to go the race.
So you couldn't find a Ford F-150 1965 truck or something to keep the theme along?
Well, you know, I knew I was going to get that question, and so I went back and I looked on the internet, and you see a lot of cars, like you'll see Fords being towed on Chevys, see Chevys being towed on or driven on Dodges. And if Ford wanted to provide us a truck, we'd have been happy to have a Ford truck. But since I'm paying the freight on this, and this was the right deal, this is the truck we're using.
That's part of racing. You work with what you have and move forward from there. Well, what kind of a crew is Tony coming down with you? Who's your crew and all those steps?
The way this is going to work is I'm going to drive the car, and actually a young man that works here at Sam Pack 5-Star Ford is the navigator. His name is Will Horn. He graduated the Shelby School a couple of years ago, and he's done some different kinds of racing. And when my friend Wilbert had a medical problem that wouldn't allow him to go with us, then I talked to Will and I said, will you come be the navigator? And so he is. He'll be leaving on the 13th, and he and Tony Whitworth and my wife actually will fly down, Jen, will fly down on the 13th. We do time trials on the 15th, and we start to race on the 16th. So my very good friend Mitch Gray, who built the hauler, and I are actually headed to the border now. So we're going to take a couple of days. We've got about 1,800 miles to go.
Now, you have the truck as a support truck. Do you have any other support vehicles for the truck?
But you know, I might need some. I might need a support vehicle for the support vehicle, but I don't think so. No, this is it. Some of the little towns and villages you go through are pretty tight, and we've met a lot of people that have run the race, including a good friend named Jake Shuttlesworth. He's done it 10 times. And he said it can get kind of tight. And so there's some areas getting through with the trailers a little bit challenging, and I thought, if we can be compartmentalized in one unit, it probably works well, so that's what we're trying.
So to cover the race in 8 days, you have everything you need in the truck here.
Including spare spindles, drive lines, clutch and pressure plate, everything that we could think of, front end parts, things that we think of we might bend or that might break.
And anything that might happen that you do not have that, people get very creative in the different communities down there in finding those parts and services. And I know down in Mexico, they're very supportive of the race itself. They treat you guys as rock stars.
They do. Everything I hear about it is they really, really treat the drivers well. There is a lot of support down there. There are a lot of Ford and Mustang people racing the race, and we understand there's a lot of camaraderie there. But, you know, racers tend to help racers. And while we all want to be ahead of the other guy, when it comes to keeping the car on the road, our experience is racers help racers. So hope we don't need that kind of help. But I think that, you know, if somebody, maybe somebody else breaks a spindle and needs one of ours. If they do, they're welcome to it. So it's a neat race because as a vintage race, there's no money to be made. You know, we're all doing this because we want to and because we want to have a good time and have a great adventure. And so I think that builds the camaraderie more.
We are here with fellow racer Rob Miller, who has this awesome Shelby race car, which is essentially a school project. Can you tell me about it?
That's exactly what it is. 100 kids have taken a Craigslist car that we spent $800 on and created a Shelby Mustang. This is an accurate recreation of what they called the Group 2 Mustangs. These raced in 64 and 65, and the Shelby Automotive Technology Program, the instructors and the students built this car. Would you like to see the engine?
Oh, absolutely.
Thought you might.
Let's pop it open.
And
That is clean.
Yeah, isn't that nice? So when Shelby built the race cars, they didn't have the fancy aluminum covers on them. They had steel covers. They raised the vent tubes to get more air through. And this car, this is what the race motors in 64 and 65 would have looked like. Oil pan's the exact same. It's almost, we made a few modern improvements. It's got better brakes and a better roll cage.
That's important.
Exactly. That's what my wife says for sure. And so, but otherwise, it's a very, and of course we've got aluminum radiator, very accurate recreation of what Carroll Shelby built in the 60s.
And the cool thing about this school is it's the only school in the world with Carroll Shelby's name on it.
The only one. Shelby was born in Leesburg, Texas, which is just a few miles from the school. Late in his life, he wanted to have an automotive technology program that he could put his name on. So he came to the Northeast Texas Community College and he said, guys, let me put my name on your program. I'm going to give you $50,000 in scholarships, and I'm going to give you a 1968 GT 350H.
Wow.
That was the last car that Carroll Shelby bought. He had it restored, and it lives permanently at this college.
That's incredible, and the school is so special. How many students are enrolled?
The automotive technology program has about 18 students typically. That's their full-time college students. They also have a part-time program for some of the high school students. They also have a really big, nice welding program. In fact, the two programs work together to build this car. This roll cage was built by the welding program there. And that was the first time those two programs had collaborated.
Very nice. What races has this car participated in?
First race it will participate in, and the reason it was built is for the Carrera Panamericana, which is in Mexico. It's 2,000 miles in 7 days on closed Mexican highways.
Wow.
Top speed on this car will be 145 miles an hour on Mexican highways.
Not too shabby.
No, I think fast enough in a car 50 years old.
Oh yeah.
So that'll be the first race. We've also been invited to Tasmania to race the Targa. Maybe next April we go there and take the car to Tasmania.
And can you explain to our viewers what that is?
It's similar to the Panamericana, both endurance races over closed public roads. You have speed sections where you go pretty high speed, and then you have transit sections where you just drive through town. This car is actually licensed and legal to drive on the roads of Texas.
Oh, very nice.
It's a little noisy for that.
I might have to take it for a spin later then.
You probably can. I don't think anyone would mind.
All right.
So you got yourself in shape. You're ready to go for the 8 days, the grueling drives, and then the evenings when you're working on the car, and also celebrating with the townspeople and stuff. Any running, bicycling, anything going on?
Oh, sure. I've been running about 20 miles a week, watching what I eat, not drinking any wine. That's the part that's bothering me. No. Yeah, I have worked pretty hard in the last 6 months to get in pretty good shape, because you don't want to let the team down. A lot of people have worked very hard on the car and the truck and the effort, not only at the school, not only in the program itself, but the administrators at the college have done a lot of things to make things happen. And so I don't want to let that down. I want to drive the best I can drive. I think we're going to have a good run. The car feels good. We just got race tires on it, and that makes a huge difference, and so it runs well. We've had it out on the roads of East Texas, and there's a lot of windy up and down stuff, and the car really handles well. We're optimistic, and we're having a good time with it.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for sharing and bringing us here to meet you and to follow some of this through with the school itself and with your endeavors with the car. We're very excited to bring this to our viewers, and we wish you the very best of luck, and we're excited to see, first off, that you make it through safely, that you do as well as you'd like, and that you have some stories to tell.
Well, I think there will be some stories to tell, and I hope we have a good race. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Tim, thank you for coming out to the first track day and for coming to Sam Pack's 5-Star Ford. We really appreciate it, and we're really glad that we have this decal on the car, and we're gonna show it off well in Mexico. Thank you, Tim.
All right, thank you very much, Rob. I appreciate it.